Kyle here from allmediareviews.blogspot.com. This is probably the last Friday, and I'll be doing any type of videos for a while, unless I'm off or something like that, or find some other time to do it. Because I'm going back to work next week, so I'm dealing with a stomach infection or something like that earlier this week. It's not been easy been busy, we had record store day. I'm just going to go over some of this stuff as briefly. We never did a video, but the story might be told in a later video. I don't know. I got the Mars Volta's Landscape Tantrums at Record Store Day. It was not a Record Store Day item. I didn't, stuff I bought recently were sort of my Record Store Day, but my mother-in-law had to be discharged from rehab center the same day. It wasn't like a typical Record Store Day for us. And I've seen a few concerts the last few weeks too. I saw Alan Parsons Project, the makeup sort of postponed concert from September 2021 when the Pantages Theater got moved to the State Theater. And that was a good show. They did all of Eye in the Sky, the album, versus doing all of Turn of the Friendly Card, which was originally billed as. Turn of Friendly Card has Games People Play and some others, but obviously Eye in the Sky has the title track and Time. I think Time's on. No, Time's not on them. But it has some other Children of the Moon, which I was reminded of Marillion's song Berlin for some reason. Maybe I'll go into more in depth about that in a later time. But they were good though, Alan Parsons, although it's interesting how Alan's more of a conductor. He sings a little bit and plays some like acoustic guitar and maybe some keys, I think, but the guitarist he's got is really one of the stars, and the vocalists that he has in his band. Games People plays like their biggest hit. They did that as an encore. It was a big deal for my wife to see that. I wanted to see Alan Parsons Project last year. That was going to be the first show I was going to see since COVID, after getting vaccinated and stuff. And I remember they had come a few years before. I think it was with Squeeze, but I'm not certain. But I know I had some friends that ended up going to that show, and I regretted not going. So, and I'm not a huge Alan Parsons Project fan. I like them here and there. They have a Pink Floyd-y element, but and he's known for working with Pink Floyd on The Dark Side of the Moon and some other stuff, I think. And the Beatles, he was in the studio during Abbey Road when he was young, pretty young at that point. And Steve Wilson, among other people. I kind of look at him as more of a studio, engineer, savant kind of person and a songwriter rather than a live performer, a little bit like Steely Dan. And I saw Steely Dan many years ago, and that was kind of the same feeling. That they didn't tour a lot, so I wanted to go, and they played all of Asia at that show. I saw it at Northam Auditorium. And so that's kind of my feeling when I saw that Alan Parsons Project came a few years ago, and then this year it's like I should go see him because I don't know how often he's ever going to tour. But 2 times within, whatever it's been, 3 or 4 years, I guess is more. Maybe he's touring more now than he used to. So, but yeah, I don't know if I'll end up seeing him again, but it was a good show. I mean, the prog versus what kind of music he really is, like classic rock. Some of his music almost sounds a little like yacht rocky. I don't know, there's always been a Pink Floyd aesthetic to the Alan Parsons Project sound, although there's Alan Parsons Project and then Alan Parsons, which is interesting. Anything Shocking, that album, I got that CD from BMG, just automatically sent to me, and I always had that. I had that compilation. It was one of the first CDs I ever bought. That one, the blue and kind of some red textures on it. But I always associate Alan Parsons Project with that. But I've heard some of the songs on radio, Time and Eye in the Sky, and Games People Play and some others. But so yeah, I was glad I went. So the other concert I just saw a couple nights ago was the relatively new and quite young all-sister trio from Monterrey, Mexico, hard rock, proggy at times, metal, borderline metal band The Warning. And a coworker of mine has become kind of obsessed with them. He loves Metallica, and they covered on the Blacklist, and they covered it many years before when they were really young. They were on the Ellen Show, Enter Sandman, but the version with Alessia Cara on vocals for the Enter Sandman is really good. The Warning. So yeah, this is the Warning Army. It's like their sort of hardcore fan base street team kind of thing. And so he gave me, because he was, you know, part of the Patreon, he got a bunch of extra goodies and merch and paraphernalia and what do you call this stuff, flair or whatever else. He just get, like, I should be showing my buttons from the Monkeys thing, from the Mickey Dolenz show. That was the Monkeys show actually I have from Zilch, but so I got 5 of these. I don't know where these are going to end up, but maybe I'll end up giving them out at a show at some point. I don't know. So, but they were really good, The Warning. Probably better than I expected. I'd say, and I know their EP from 2021, Mayday, which kind of came out late. I know that from that and the Enter Sandman cover the most. They have 2 albums though. 21st Century Blood was their debut, and 2015 I think it was, and Queen of the Murder Scene in 2018. And I kind of slept on that. I was listening to some of Queen of the Murder Scene the day of the show, and I was really impressed by it. I couldn't believe how much I enjoyed a lot of the piano parts and the more dynamic range. In some ways, I almost think I might enjoy that more than some of the stuff from the Mayday EP. But so they did all of the Mayday EP and the new song called Money. And they're really kind of catching on. I mean, they have been. That's kind of how I found out about them. A lot of people are doing reaction videos. But so they did all of that, and then they did a number of songs from their 2 records, Queen of the Murder Scene and 21st Century Blood. Dull Knives Cut Better, that one is kind of crazy. And then Survive, they did this kind of... They did jam to an extent. It had this great inertia to it. I would have gone for them to play it even longer than they did. But Dust to Dust, and, you know... So all the other songs, like Animosity. Animosity, I keep on thinking, and that's got the line, of course, Mayday, Mayday, this ship is going down. The band, the technical death metal band Animosity, which I can't remember if it was them that I saw. I think it might have been them I saw with Between the Buried and Me. There were a bunch of bands on a bill when I saw Between the Buried and Me. One of them was supposed to be the band The End, but they were replaced by a band called Giant. I can't remember, but Animosity is not around anymore. They had at least one really good record, but I think of them when I see that song called Animosity. But yeah, they played to the crowd. I mean, they're just young women, you know, from Monterrey, Mexico, kind of mature, advanced beyond their ages and their years to an extent. Although, you know, I could say they've been playing music a long time just since they were little kids. But as far as like touring life, playing the show, vibing with the crowd, stage presence, just 3 of them. Daniela, Paulina, and the bass player Alex. But yeah, and the thing is, like, Danny and Paulina both, like, Danny's the lead vocalist and guitarist, but Paulina does sing. They all sing, actually, but Paulina sang some lead parts, and honestly, her voice sounded almost strikingly similar to her sister. It's that whole Bee Gees, Beach Boys, genetic family siblings that sing. Voices can sound so similar that I was having a hard time actually distinguishing between, like, well, is Danny singing? She's not on the mic, on her microphone. So, but great energy. You know, I would love to see them again. Playing the Fine Line. That was at the Fine Line. Meant that was on Wednesday night, the 27th of April. But I would imagine because of their momentum and interest, they're going to open for 3 Days Grace and a couple other bands coming up. But they potentially could be playing bigger places soon. I would think, you know, if First Avenue sees the momentum, the interest, they would end up eventually at First Avenue. I said that about Fair to Midland and never happened, and like Porcupine Tree and Dredge and everything like that. But I mean, their sound, if you haven't heard The Warning, they're kind of, I don't know, they're heavy. They're not metal exactly, but the riffs they're very punchy. There are a lot of punchy riffs. There was one song, and I think it was Dull Knives, but there was one other song that was either Survive, When I'm Alone. I need to revisit, or Narcisista, I think the other one they sing in Spanish. They sing 2 songs in Spanish. That and Martirio. That's on their on the Mayday EP, but it was very technical. It was like this syncopated tapping thing at points. So I think it was Dull Knives. That could potentially become like my favorite song of theirs. So yeah, no, big thumbs up on the girls from The Warning. Would like to see them do a tour with War Paint. You'd call it the War Tour because you'd have the all female bands both with the name War, the WAR in their name, but not that they'd be at war or warring against each other, but it would just sort of fit. It would be fun. Stylistically, they're pretty different in a lot of ways, but although I'd say Pink Floyd is where their styles could cross over a bit. So, so that's what happened, and obviously new stuff has been coming out today. I just noticed how Jimmy Gnecco sang a cover, sang with a band, with this band called Patriarchs something, and it was a cover of Led Zeppelin's Kashmir. Patriarchs in Black is what they're called. I listened to it. It's on Spotify. Pretty good. I mean, it's Jimmy Gnecco adding a little bit of his thing. The band has a little... I mean, it's more traditional than Kevin Gilbert's cover of Kashmir. It's kind of an unfair comparison to really compare anything, because that song is... That interpretation is so sort of unusual and different, but it's not an exact copy. It's, he does kind of bring the Robert Plant style, some of the wailing, some of the kind of phrasings and stuff to his own style to an extent. But the guitar parts and some of the riffs, I mean, it's most making it sort of making it heavier or slightly metal in a way. But I enjoyed it. I mean, it's the full length song versus if you again don't want to compare, but I naturally just end up doing it a little bit. The Kashmir that Kevin did, that Kevin Gilbert did, was sort of a not an abridged version, but some ways sort of abridged. Doesn't do the whole thing. It's like less is more in some ways, but I don't know. I'm gonna listen to it more, and being a Zeppelin fan, the Kashmir was a song when I grew up. And I love Zeppelin. They were my favorite band initially, and among rock bands. Started liking classic rock. Kashmir I loved initially, but then I kind of wore it out a bit. It was always on the radio, and I still like it, but it has something about it where it kind of does repeat, and it's always been sort of a mid-tempo or even kind of slow song in a way, which is not lent to repeated listenings to my interest. And I love Physical Graffiti. I still consider it my favorite Led Zeppelin album, although they're all about equal to me. Among the songs on Physical Graffiti, and it's a double album, so there's like, I don't know, there's like 15 or 20. It would probably not even be in the top half now, but whatever, to hear someone else do it, I'll have to listen to it more. But, of course, there's three new albums that came out today. I've been enjoying the Typhoon EP a lot, by the way. I'm going to probably pick that up on Bandcamp Friday soon, from a few weeks ago. But, let's see here, the two big ones, this archive album Call to Angels and Arms. I think Call to Arms and Angels, whatever, should have that on here. That came out, and I just was checking it out a little bit. I have not gotten through the whole thing because it's 103 minutes long. And I think it's a soundtrack. Again, I don't have all the details in front of me, and I just reading about it a little bit. Archive's not a band you can find stuff that easily online about. Where was it? Yeah, Call to Arms and Angels. But it's actually getting pretty good reviews, which most of the records are. Like, usually you hear a new Archive album, you're like, oh, that's really good, and then I never return to them. Really, since Controlling Crowds, I haven't been attached to an Archive album that much. And the fact that it's 103 minutes, almost 2 hours, may hurt my interest to go back to it, but I have to admit, listening to the first 4 or 5 songs, I really liked it. I really liked a lot of it. Like, every track, I'm like, even though the segues were a little weird, not exactly that fluid, the songs themselves all seem to be good, with different singers, and they've had different singers the last decade and change. They've had at least one, maybe 2 female singers, so Archive, the band from England, so going back to the 90s, and you could put them in the same kind of family with, or to an extent, with bands like Pure Reason Revolution and yeah, I mean they're more of a trip hop band now, probably. I mean, they're very much into writing atmospheric, textured rock. I mean, their style hasn't changed so dramatically, but it seems like they're focused on more cinematic elements now than they used to be. But this is 103 minutes. I mean, it's got, you know, time will tell, you know. So the other one is The Gathering. This is their first album, like Archive's first album, their last album. They had an album called Axiom. I mean, I've been meaning to do a video on Archive, not to... I'm going to talk about The Gathering in just a minute, but Archive, just to sort of, by comparison, who put out a new album now in 2022, their last album came out... They had something called Versions in 2020, but that was, I think, like covers or something, or different songs. The False Foundation was 2016, so it's been 6 years. Then they had Restriction 2015, Axiom, which was a film score also, in 2014, With Us Until You're Dead in 2012. So, I mean, the last decade they've had, whatever it is, 5 albums since this record. I haven't even heard Versions. I need to hear that. And there's a Versions remix. By comparison, though, Holland's The Gathering, their album Beautiful Disclosure, that also comes out today, you know, April 29th, is their first album in 10 years, since the last album I really enjoyed from them, Disclosure. They had something in 2016 called Blueprints, but that's it. So, and I listened to Beautiful Distortion once so far, and I mean, knowing The Gathering, they're female-led. I wouldn't call them metal anymore, really. They're more like atmospheric rock, like kind of like Archive. I mean, not identical, but they've had typically one singular singer. Their most well-known singer is Anneke van Giersbergen, but she left the band in 2007, so it's been 15 years. Silje Wergeland has been the singer since 2009, and I really like her. But I'll say that this record reminds me a fair amount of Disclosure, and the second half I liked a lot. It's not getting the best reception, but I mean, given it's been 10 years, I don't know. I mean, I really enjoyed Disclosure. It was like in the top 20, 25 records in 2012. I mean, that was 10 years ago now. But I haven't listened to it that much. And I honestly think that The Gathering are a band that I probably could enjoy more than I have gotten to the point. I've always enjoyed their music. I know their early stuff is really more like doom metal. But Anneke is a great singer, and Silja's also a really good singer. And I have a few of the records, Mandelion. This new album actually has a live version of How to Measure a Planet with Silja, if I'm saying her name right. But yeah, I think it's time. You know, they're like Anathema a little bit. Their evolution and style, or else the band is like Ulver. Now Ulver is a little more diverse, but sort of like a metal band with like sort of, you know, heavy rock or heavy metal roots, almost bordering on extreme metal, from that period in the 90s that kind of evolved to have very kind of atmospheric influences to doing rock with female vocals, a lot of cinematic qualities. I'm not saying if you listen to songs that were all instrumental from Anathema, from The Gathering, and from Ulver, you would not be able to distinguish them. But I'm just saying those three bands almost could be played at a festival together or something. You give someone a sample of those three bands and be like, oh, I can understand your tastes. I mean, you know, the last record I remember having a big Pink Floyd element as well. You know, Pink Floyd's influence is very far stretched. It's reached many artists in many different styles, and you know, European sort of hard rock, metal, especially a lot of these bands. So, you know, Beautiful Distortion, I'm going to give it some time, but I'm happy, you know, I'm not disappointed in it. I think some people are, but then again, a lot of people that are still pining for Anneke to come back are, you know. So how many records they've done with Silja? This would be, what, the third record. They did the West Pole in 2009, which I've never heard. So, yeah, I think, like I said, I owe it to myself to probably hear more music from The Gathering. I've always liked them. They're you know, I think of that kind of style of you can call it gothic metal, European, largely European, although some of them are from like America or Canada. You know, after Within Temptation, Power Symphony, Nightwish. You could even put Simone Simon's band, Epica, on that list. There's a whole bunch. There's literally dozens. Lacuna Coil. Maybe I'm stereotyping to an extent, but there's a lot of bands that have the female-fronted metal that kind of atmospheric. You know, some of them have some death metal elements. You know, some of them are a little more technical, more doomy, more Black Sabbath-y. You know, I've always kind of seen The Gathering as being slightly one of the earliest bands of kind of that kind of mold, and also one of the best, if not the best. And the songwriters, beyond Annika, or she wasn't even the original singer, the other members of The Gathering that have still been around, I can't really name you the history that well. I'm looking at their list of artists, a list of members in the band. Obviously, have to be given some credit for their style and their sound. Beyond, you know, Annika was a big part of that. So anyway, so that came out, and then Bloc Party put out a record that I haven't even checked out. I'm wondering if Justin Harris, formerly of Menomina, is on it, because he's been a touring member of Bloc Party in the last, whatever it's been, 5, 6, 7 years. It's called Alpha Games, but people are not really all that optimistic about it. So I'm a somewhat long-time Bloc Party fan, although they haven't put out a new record I've liked in probably almost 10 years. So the King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album Omnium Gathering that came out last week, I listened to some of it, and I like some of it, but it also kind of reminded me a little bit about the garage style singing into a tin can vocal approach and production style. That, you know, it's like, it's frustrating when you listen to King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Not only do they have like 20 albums in like 8 years, there's too many albums to listen to really get fully into or have the time even. But it's just sort of like, what are they going for? And then they're very diverse. I'll give them that much. They're eclectic, and they've done many different styles, a little bit like Over or KO Dot or something like that. But I listened to the first 4 songs, and some of them really had moments I enjoyed. They're, you know, very riffy at points. It's just, why are you singing into a tin can? I always wonder. But I'm going to listen to that more, and I'm thinking that might be something I'll be listening to a fair amount this year, that Omnium Gathering record. So, yeah, Grimace is a band. Donick is coming out next week. That got announced recently. I don't know if I told it on video. Grimace, the band from Romania, who remind me a lot of ours. But no, I don't think I did. And you have Purism and Evolutions, Above Cyrus. I have pre-ordered War Paints, Radiate Like This. So those 3 records will all be coming out a week from now, but I'm not going to be here a week from now. I'm going to be at work. So I don't know when I'll be talking about those on camera necessarily. So yeah, I mean, May is going to be this big month, and then you got whatever, Gospel the Loser the week after, and 0 Hour Agenda 21 that week after, and the week after that is Everything's Raw Data Feel, and then the week after that, The Family Crest Act 2, and the Licorice Quartet Threesome Volume 3, and then Coheed and Cambria's Vaxis Volume 2, Window of the Waking Mind, the week after that. So, I mean, over the next month, we got just... May 2022 is one of the biggest months, potentially, in my favorite, of my taste. I don't know. You know, I'm just glad some of these records just came out, and I'm enjoying them. And of course, there's stuff that hasn't come out that will be announced soon that we don't know about yet. I'm still waiting on the Deer Hunter, of course, but I don't know when that's coming out. But there's something coming from Dread. The King's X album will be coming out at some point. We'll get an announcement maybe soon. So anyway, like I said, I'm going to be working from home again on Mondays and Tuesdays, so I might be able to come on camera and do something on Monday or Tuesday. I've been watching Better Call Saul. I watched the 3rd episode of the season. Of course, it had a pretty significant moment at the end, but I'll definitely be doing some spoiler-filled commentary and review once the season's over, or even when the half season's over, because they're going to take 6 weeks off starting at the end of May. So, and you know, I have gone back to 12 Monkeys and still watching the show, Winning Time, the show, and some other stuff. Still consuming my media, my television. My wife and I may be going to an animated movie this weekend. We'll see. Of course, the Timberwolves in the playoffs playing Memphis tonight in Game 6. They win. I still don't expect them to win the series. But the NBA playoffs have been sort of fun, but it strikes me also that you watch the NBA and it's so much more spread out, and the three pointers are so driven by, the games are driven by by who's making more threes. It's kind of sad. But I mean, I don't know. I like to think of fundamentals and the history of basketball, but it's not paying attention to the NBA nearly as much the last 5 years. It's weird watching it, but I'm glad that the Timberwolves are in the playoffs finally, and they may have some upside. The NFL draft is happening, and the Vikings, being from Minnesota, Timberwolves, Vikings is my forte, but trading the 12th pick to a division rival wasn't maybe the best idea from the first move from a new GM, but I don't know. We'll see. So, but that's it for now. Like I said, next week is the first week where I'm doing the hybrid, so making these videos, and hopefully I won't be sick or whatever else we're dealing with X number of things, but my YouTube schedule, video blogs, or whatever else may be more like it's been the last couple weeks rather than it was the last, off and on the last 10, 11 months, just, for priorities. But I don't know. I'll have to figure things out. I came up with a really good video idea the other day, and now I can't even remember what it was. So, but thank you for watching. If you subscribed recently, thank you for subscribing. What concerts have you seen recently? Just curious. Just give me your thoughts. Give me how things going. Are you going back to work? Have you been, is your company letting you go back to work at this point? Are you letting you go back to, or having you go back to work? Do you want to go back to work? That's kind of been crossing my mind, of course, having this health scare earlier this week, and then, now going back to work. It's going to be a quite different approach for things, but we'll see how it goes. But thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.